the light that shines in the sheepfold. He is the sheepfold of the sheep. And he's the Lamb of God. All three wrapped up in one. He is the high priest that offered the offering. He is the God that accepted the offering. And he's the offering himself that was offered. This is the God that we serve. As we have said many times, he came. And before he came, he was here already. When he left, he didn't go away. We say that he's coming back, but he has always been here. That's the Jesus that we serve. In Colossians chapter 2, verse 8 to 10, we read it. Paul wrote to the church at Colossae, and he said, beware lest any man spoil you. How are they going to spoil you? Through philosophy and vain deceit. After what? The tradition of men. After the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. For in him, he didn't say in them, in him dwelleth all the fullness of the Godhead bodily, and we are complete in him. Now folks, if you pause to think about it for a little, Paul uses words that are not necessary. In this verse, Paul could have said, in him dwelleth all of the Godhead bodily. Because what can you all excludes nothing. Or he could have said, in him dwelleth the fullness of the Godhead bodily. But when Paul looked at Jesus, the word all couldn't say it all. And the word fullness wasn't full enough. So he said, in him dwelleth all of the fullness. The Godhead is Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. In a nutshell. And Paul said, all of that in its fullness dwells in Jesus Christ bodily. What is Paul saying? He says, in Jesus Christ, not some, but all the fullness of the Godhead is continuously and permanently at home in bodily fashion. If you look for any God outside of Jesus, you're going to worship an idol. John chapter 5, he identifies Jesus and calls him the true God. Jesus is not the only God. He's just the true God. So any other God outside of Jesus is false. You know what what Paul calls Jesus in 1 Corinthians chapter 1? He calls him the wisdom of God and the power of God. So if you subtract Christ from God, you have a God that don't have no wisdom and power. Because Christ is God's wisdom and power. So without Christ, God is a dunce. Let's talk about Jesus. The King of Kings is he. The Lord of Lords supreme through all eternity. The great I am, the way, the truth, the life, the doer. Let's talk about Jesus more and more. Oh Lord, the fullness of the Godhead dwelt in Jesus before his incarnation when he was in the form of God, according to Philippians 2:6. The fullness of the Godhead dwelt in Jesus during his incarnation. It was the Word that became flesh and dwelt among us, full of grace and truth. And his glory, which was beheld, was the glory as of the only begotten of the Father. The fullness of the Godhead dwells in his glorified humanity in heaven. The fullness of the Godhead dwells in him in a bodily way. The fullness of the Godhead dwelt in his person from his birth to his ascension. He carried his human body with him into heaven. And in his glorified body right now, as we speak, dwells the fullness of the Godhead. He's the only God you will ever see, whether in wrath or in mercy, whether at the great white throne judgment or when you meet him in the clouds. Jesus is the only God you will see. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Now, some people have questioned, how can the fullness of the Godhead dwell in Jesus Christ bodily? They say that God is too big for such a small place. Some have even tried to explain it by thinking that at the incarnation, God ceased inhabiting heaven and all of time and space in order to dwell in Jesus. So then, upon the ascension, God returned to heaven and returned to all of time, to all of space. That's what we call the Jesus-only view. That's what they call the Jesus-only view. But from Scripture, we know that this is not so. Because, you know, folks, that when Jesus was on earth, he said that he was in heaven. John chapter 3 and verse 13. He told Nicodemus that I'm speaking to you on earth as the Son of Man, but I'm in heaven. Nicodemus couldn't understand that. Now, folks, how is it that God's fullness could dwell in Christ and yet also continue to inhabit the heavens as he always had? Ask yourself this question. How is it that God fills us with the Holy Ghost? Does God fill us with a diluted portion of the Holy Ghost? By the way, I see some of us operate. I know it couldn't be so. I saw Brother Michael hurdle this railing last night. I've never seen that in all my years at Pentecostal Taberncale. He was preaching and hurdled the railing. And I was wondering if it's because Olympics are coming up this year. He was trying to make the Jamaica hurdles team. And he sprinted down there too. He looked in very good form. I know that when I saw that, I know that couldn't be anything diluted. That wasn't anything watered down. Stand up if you have a watered down Holy Ghost. Stand up if you know you have the undiluted, real, genuine Holy Ghost. Just be seated for a little while. It couldn't be possible for God to fill us with a diluted portion of the Holy Ghost. God is fully God no matter where he is. Amen. It's not possible for there to be more of God in one place than in another. Or for only a part of God to be in one place but not another. Or for more of God to dwell in one person than in another. God is not a qualitative being. Sorry, God is a qualitative being, not a quantitative being. When you talk about God, you're talking about quality, not quantity. God is of a divine quality, not a divine quantity. God is spirit, and he cannot be measured because as spirit, God does not consist of matter. You see, we think in terms of material things. That's how we think. So we think that, you know, for all of something to hold into something, then everything must be able to hold quantity. We don't think about quality. So here's how we think. Let me give you an example. In order for the fullness of, let us say, the Pepsi in a bottle to be put, is an analogy. In order for the fullness of the Pepsi in a bottle of Pepsi to be put in my glass, We believe that it requires that my glass be able to hold every drop of Pepsi in the bottle. If all the Pepsi in the bottle will not hold in the glass cannot be said to contain the fullness of the Pepsi. Why is this so? It is because Pepsi is a quantitative substance, but God is not a quantitative substance. So God can't be measured like Pepsi. If that was so, all of God would be in me.